One thing to consider is that we may not want to always run alarm management reports in isolation from other data sources, for example, tag history from a process historian. We can merge the two data sources as long as any data sources we need are defined as connectors in the XLReporter project. And connectors can be added or modified from the Data tab of the Project Explorer. Here I'm going to use an example of a historian, and you can see we support all the leading HMI SCADA vendors, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to use XLReporter's historian simulator. The catalog allows you to rearrange how the tag browser is loaded when designing and running reports. Not really important to us right now. And now I'm just going to go back into the alarm report template. And given that I'm working with a predefined layout here, what I'm going to do is just add a new sheet to include the historian data. So I think alarm source is a good candidate to start with. I can make a few modifications to this and turn it into a historical trend report. So I'll copy this sheet, and then I'll rename it History Trend. Next, I'm going to make a few changes to the layout. Since this is no longer about alarms, we can delete some of the information. We can change some of the headings here. And I can change some of the headings here. I'm going to include a timestamp as the first column, and I'll include some of the tags from the historian. Okay. Now I'm going to change the chart here from this Pareto to a line chart, and I'll use XLReporter's chart wizard for that. I'll select line chart as the type. I'll set the pens to these first two columns here. I'll set the x-axis to the timestamp column to create a traditional trend chart. And the reason I'm doing things this way with the top 3 rows selected is that the top row is going to be used as the series name and the legend entries. And then because this report is dynamic in that we don't know how many rows of data we could get back because the time period is custom, the best practice in XLReporter design for that is to set things like formulas and charts to the first 2 rows of where the data is going to be placed, and then use the insert placement type in the connection configurator. I'll place the chart at the top of the report here, and then fit it into place. And then now I will add a, so let's go back into the connect menu here, and we will set the connector to the historian and add a new data group. And what I want to do is return the average split every day over the report period for each of these KPIs, and so for that I'm going to use a summary values data group. And now I just add the tags that I named in the heading area there. So here's mixer 1, mixer 2, extruder 1, extruder 2, reactor, and tank 1 and tank 2. And for the calculation, I'll set average. And for the time period, I've got to sync this up to the existing alarm report. So I'll use the same variables that are used to determine the start and end of that one, which are just start date and end date. And then, of course, the interval for daily averages should be every 1 day. I'll save the connection. I'll name it after the template and tag it as tag KPI. And then I'll place it on the history trend sheet in B24 there. And I'll use the placement type insert at n, which is going to stretch the chart series based on the data that we collect. Now, as a matter of principle, because we're including connections on multiple sheets, each connection should be mapped to a specific sheet. Because there's only one in here by default, it might be set to any sheet here, but you would want to set this to dashboard. I save the connections, and then now I'll go back into the on-demand designer here and make a few adjustments there as well. Because the alarm report template by default is going against the alarm management connector, it has the date set in like a SQL Server format, and that may not be used by the historian. The best approach is to set this to local date time and make any changes to the date format as a matter of the connector settings at the project level. So we'll set this back to local date time, save, and the action here we want to set to update book so that both of the sheets with data connections get updated. Now let's take a look at preview mode to see how this will work in action. And we'll run for the brewmaster position, same time period again. But this time you can see that the data from the tags is brought back for the same time period as the alarm data.